So if you had the chance to play one of them, who would you choose and why?
I'm not competing with the cast. I mean, I'm not competing with this cast. No.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, and yourself?
Fine, thank you.
So the first episode of this series, it's hard to describe. There is a little bit of romance, a lot of magic, a lot of wine, a lot of blood, and a lot of brutality. So how would you describe the first episode of Curse?
I think you just did a great job.
Yeah, kind of like that.
The perfect description.
Yeah, that's the pitch right there.
I was going to say if I could add anything onto that for you about story, I think you did a brilliant job of describing that. But definitely in the first episode, we really do see the setup to this legendary story, and I think part of that is the introduction to the Fae and the whole world that is cursed, which is one of the exciting and new challenges that we had shooting this, was not just creating characters in the story, but also creating this completely new world.
Because magic runs through us.
Frank, in an interview back in 2018, I think, you said that your work was always represent what you were going through at that very moment. You are a creator. So in which way Curse defined you at this very moment?
There's always one question. You notice that, Tom?
That's a good one.
One question you really got to strain for. No, I think that as far as the biggest test for me, I've got to say the biggest test for me on this project, on the book, was to I took it as a test at stepping into the shoes of being a book illustrator and illustrating the same kind of material that great book illustrators before have illustrated, and to try to do it in a way that wasn't imitating them. And so it's kind of like threading a needle, but trying to have fun at the same time, so that I'd be thinking about Arthur Rackham, but not have him open while I was working. So I would say that was the particular intimate challenge. Other than that, I've got to say that the challenge have come fast and furious, and I didn't see any of them coming because they've all had to do with the day-to-day work on this project. And this project is unlike any other I've worked on.
The Arthurian legend is one of the most important episodes in literature. And what I really enjoy about this series, this story, is the fact that we are able to see more human characters along with a strong dose of fantasy and folklore and brutality. We imagine Arthur or Merlín as these moral characters, superior beings, leaders, but actually in this series, they lie, they drink a lot of wine, they make mistakes. So what inspired you to come with the storyline of Curse?
Yeah, it started with, conversations with Frank. I was really thrilled at the chance to collaborate with Frank Miller, whose work has influenced me so much. And at first, I think we were both excited by the idea of, tackling our version of the Arthurian mythology, because yes, it's so enduring and the characters are so rich. You just are kind of tantalized at the idea of like, well, how would we approach this? I was very much, as a fan, wanted to see Frank's version of Merlin and of Arthur, but there are so many versions of this story that we knew we needed a kind of less traveled road into the story, and we looked at this. The image of the Lady of the Lake is so powerful. The arm reaching out, the sword to Arthur, and it suggests so much, and it suggests tragedy and romance and magic. There was a real story in that image, but we didn't know what that story was. So once we began to unpack the idea of Nimue and the idea of a young woman who held the sort of power before King Arthur, that really opened up a lot of new ways to introduce these characters to readers and to viewers. And personally, I I love the fantasy where you feel very up close with these characters. They're not kind of distant and epic and fantastical, which is also great, you know. I mean, but you want to believe them, and you want to believe in their emotions, and you want to. I think for this kind of story, 10 hours, you know, you're obligated to really push these characters emotionally, and that's absolutely what we tried to do, and luckily had the cast to pull it off.
I don't know how Tom and Frank initially came up with this interpretation, but I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
When I first read the script and to consider if I wanted to play this character, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. You know, he's an alcoholic, he's lost his magic, he's deeply conflicted, and he's lost his will to do anything. And then it starts, you know, and that's where it starts off from. And then we get to know him more and more, and find out why he is in this decrepit state, and it also brings him a new reason to rise out of that state.
Yeah, thank you for taking to the character. I think it's one of those, you always get scared as an actor, like how are people going to interpret this character, and we do have such ideas about Arthur in our heads through literacy and just, you know, through history, he's been called, you know, almost like, was it a bear that they were describing in terms of the character, or, you know, these great knights that lived, or did they ever live? And it's one of those things that I hold the character very dear to my heart, because I wanted to find the human before I find the leader. And I think it's one of those things where within this story, Arthur and Nimue are trying to find out how to lead. And sometimes they're just pushed into these positions to lead, and it's not a natural thing. And I think what I liked about that is there is always that interpretation that he's a natural born leader. Mm-hmm. But he really, in this story, he's not really a natural born leader. He's trying to keep things together, trying to make sure everything's okay. And I think when you can understand all people, then you can be a true leader of all. Okay. And that's what we're seeing within him. So, and it's also exciting being, you know, a person of color playing that role, because it's an important message that of inclusivity, that there's going to be young kids that look like me or look different to me and look different to the original interpretation, but are excited to be like, oh my God, that's exciting that that's where the world is going with these characters, because he is a myth, he is a legend. And as I say, like, if you can believe in a magical sword, you should be able to believe that a person of color can play Arthur. So it's a really exciting show I think, and I'm glad Netflix are telling it.
The legend says this sword belongs to the one true king.
On the other side, Katherine, I really enjoy your character, Nimue. She has been rejected by her own people, even his father, but as her mother tells her in one episode that I think it's great, she's a survivor. She has fight against everything, and she's a survivor. I would like to have a friend like her, but what about you? What did you think about her?
I think Nimue is a very loyal friend and person, and I also think that she has also been a very wounded person, like you mentioned, and it makes her a survivor. But I also think it makes her an incredibly compassionate person. You know, I think it made her a strong person, because she has to kind of develop this exterior where she can't let everything that is put onto her or that people say about her get her down. But, you know, it's kind of like that saying when they say people who know great sadness or people who have been through a lot, they don't want other people to feel that way because they know how it feels. And throughout the season, I think that's what you see in Nimue, is her really connect with people and have a great deal of empathy. Even if they're strangers, she knows what right is right and what is wrong. And she fights very hard and ultimately puts her life on the line to try and to defend what is right and good.
Okay, so there are a lot of fascinating characters, as you said. So if you had the chance to play one of them, who would you choose and why?
I'm not competing with the cast. I mean, I'm not competing with this cast. No.
There's a tough. I mean, there's just something about, you know, Merlin that is kind of irresistible in terms of, you know.
Kid.
you know, his props and his set was always the most fun. It's always the one you would want to visit.
Without question, the character I've always fantasized about playing with Merlin. Yeah, I mean, it's.
But also, like, we'd play with his staff. Like, we would take Merlin's staff, and you know, you'd want to like play around with it, like to pretend you're shooting fireballs out of that thing.
And lightning coming in, yeah, and and also he can just be cranky all the time. You know, it's just like it doesn't have to be convincing in a romance or anything. Like, it's just, you know.
We also have these graphic designers who made these incredible spell books.
Bad sign we picked the same one.
Yeah, I mean, we've been spending a lot of time together, Frank. We're mind meld.
Well,
there's also Boris' Squire.
That's a great character. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for this, and congratulations for this series.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.